Roberts. He made news in October of 2010 when he was detained by the TSA on his way to work. He's actually a professional airline pilot, and now he is basically dedicated to getting airline professionals to stand up against the TSA. So if it's coming from pilots and stewardesses, you know that it's serious. So I would like to welcome to the mic Michael Roberts. Big round of applause.
Can you hear me back there? Come over here because I want to talk to you for a minute. My name is Michael Roberts, as I think you already heard. I am a pilot for ExpressJet Airlines, doing business as Continental Express. Can you hear me? Also United Express Airlines now. If you've flown domestic in or out of Newark, chances are you probably sat on one of our regional jets. I'm not representing the airline today, though. I'm just here to talk about my story and my perspective, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that with you. A little closer? Oh yeah, that's better, isn't it? All right, you hear me? About this time, let me lower this thing. How do you lower it? Maybe you can't. Yeah, about this time last year. All right, that's good.
No, I mean, pull it out.
About this time last year, my company sent out a memo passing along information they had received from the TSA indicating that the new body scanners that were being installed in airports across the country would become the primary screening tool for all airline passengers and crew. Anybody refusing this indignity would be subjected to a mandatory pat-down or physical frisking. Now, normally, if I'm walking through the airport and another man comes up and stops me, or out on the street, or anywhere really, says that he wants to rub his hands all over my body or take naked pictures of me, chances are, under most scenarios that I can think of, I'm probably going to say no. But now if he happens to be a government security agent with orders from the Capitol demanding that I allow him to rub his hands all over my body, take naked pictures of me, or my wife, or my kids, well, then I'm going to answer an emphatic hell's no. Don't make me laugh. And, you know, I'll go on the internet and all over global television and tell the rest of the world about the bad man in the blue shirt with the shiny badge. That's just wrong. Right? Most of my colleagues seem to feel the same way. The problem was, as you just heard, TSA never issued a notice of proposed rulemaking, as they are lawfully required to do. And that means we never had an opportunity to voice our objections or ask questions even. They just issued the new rule. They issued the new rule basically as an authoritarian decree. And I heard some guys saying things like, well, I have to get to work. You know, I have a family to feed. What choice do I have? And honestly, I had similar thoughts myself, being the sole provider for my wife and 6 kids. But I also kept thinking, do I really have no choice? Because a person who has no choice is pretty much a slave. Am I a slave now? Well, I can't choose what I would like. That's true. But I'm also free and responsible for whatever I do decide about how I'm going to deal with this. And if I voluntarily abdicate my freedom under duress, how can I even legitimately claim to be free at all? So then the question whether I'm a slave or free really comes down to the choice that I make. And I still have a choice because my liberty is not something endowed by the state. The state has no authority to take it away from me. So I had all that figured out, and that helped, but still it wasn't a pleasant situation to be in. But the faith that ultimately informed my resolve was bolstered by the conviction that whatever I decide will set a precedent and an example that my kids and others will have to deal with down the road when the tyrants go to the next level. Thank you. At the very least, I'm not going to subject them to the shame of knowing that I cowered in the face of tyranny. So I talked it over with the wife, who is and has been amazing through all of this, by the way. And the decision was made. I'm not doing it. That's the right thing, and I guess we'll just have to see what happens now. So I wrote my employer, and several other guys signed the letter with me. We just let the airline know that we don't consent. We encouraged our managers to join with us in resisting this assault on our freedom, our customers' freedom, and everybody else's out here in the world. At the very least, I gave the company fair warning to deal with our refusal however they saw fit. Predictably, perhaps, they kept silent. That was in August. On October 15th, the scanners were in Memphis. As I approached the security line there, I let the screeners know that I wouldn't be participating in their grope and scope program. So they sent me through the metal detector, and I went through like I always do. I didn't set off any alarms, like always. But when I got to the other side, I was met by a man in a blue shirt, strapping on a rubber glove. I respectfully, emphatically told him hell's no. And he and his colleagues spent the next 15 or 20 minutes collaborating among themselves, trying to wrap their heads around this curious word, no. Eventually, the police were called over. They spent another 15 or 20 minutes trying to coerce me to just go with the program. Said, hey, we're just doing our jobs. Don't you want to get to work so you can do your job too? Stuff like that. Eventually, I found myself being interrogated by a TSA investigator. Said, I understand you're refusing security screening. I said, no, sir. I walked through the metal detector, the same as I always do. Didn't set off any alarms, same as always. Well, the TSA has implemented a new screening program. These new body scanners are our primary tool for all passengers and crew. And if you refuse this indignity, we'll subject you to a mandatory pat-down. Is this going to be a problem for you? Why do you think they called you over here, buddy? As I was looking at the 20 or so cops and security agents surrounding me there in the hallway, I thought, yeah, you know, kind of looks like this might be a problem. The rest of the story you can find on feduppflyers.org. That's my website, feduppflyers.org. Encourage you to go check it out. Long story short, I did finally get out of there. I went home and shared my story on the internet, emailed it to a few people, but I didn't really know if anybody was going to care. I mean, if anybody did care, how did it ever come to this point in the first place, right? I still can't answer that. I don't know how it got to this point. But evidently some people do care. My story topped out at reddit.com, Lou Rockwell's site. It melted the server at the ExpressJet Pilots Forum several times, I think. And it truly did go viral over the next 48 hours or so, which was just an amazing thing to sit there and watch. I was astonished. I got thousands of emails and lost control of all my phones. Eventually, I had the media knocking on my door, trying to get caught up, figure out what was going on. They're funny. One of them was a producer from the Today Show. He said, how soon can you pack a bag? We want to bring you up to New York and have you on the show first thing in the morning. Right about then, his phone rang. It was his boss. And he showed me the Today Show logo on the screen. So, yeah, that's pretty neat, man. Hey, you didn't happen to fly down in a corporate jet, did you? No, I came down on American or United or whoever. So, okay, well, you know, TSA wouldn't let me in the door the other day, and I'm pretty sure they're still not going to let me in the door. So how are we going to get to New York? He said, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. I said, yeah, you do know what this story is about, right? These guys are so funny. I said, yeah, you didn't think it through too good, did you? So finally I told him, well, man, I'm sorry you came all the way down here for nothing. You're not going to let the goons put their hands in your pants on the way home, are you? I don't know if he did or not, but he left the house. The Today Show didn't work out. The next morning I was on CNN via satellite feed, and that ended up being their top story for the day. and then I went on a few others as well. So all via satellite feed, by the way. Now the media people, they're funny, but they're actually pretty good. I realize that, you know, they all travel a lot themselves, and they totally get what this is all about. It's the money people behind the media that you have to watch out for. I did a follow-up interview on CNN a little while later. It was much better than the first interview. It's probably the best interview I've done on any of the networks, and it aired once live, and then they buried it. It just didn't even make it to the Internet Archives or anything. So I don't know if Ted Turner has stock in Rapiscan or what, but anyway, moving on. I went the next 2 weeks with 0 sleep. I couldn't get my brain to shut down. I was doing interviews and getting phone calls from everyone, and it was like my brain had exploded, and now everybody was talking about it. It was very entertaining from my point of view. There's so much humor in this whole situation, and I think my wife and I probably never laughed so hard in our lives. But I heard from passengers and other crew members, got lots of encouragement during those 2 weeks, but absolutely no help. For 2 weeks. All right, check. Hello? All right. Yeah, for the next 2 weeks, I was just hanging out there by myself, really. And that was a very long 2 weeks. Then I heard from Continental 777 pilot Ann Poe. Ann had just been escorted out of the Fort Lauderdale airport following an incident very similar to mine, only this time they were ready for her. Whereas they had treated me like a disobedient subject, really they didn't know what to do with me, they treated her like a bona fide terrorist. They swabbed her hands and bags for explosive residue. They wouldn't let her carry her bags, her own luggage, out of the airport. And mind you, this is a lady who's been in the business since before I was born. She was one of the first 100 women in commercial aviation in the U.S. And now Ann and I are suing the TSA and the Department of Homeland Security. And we're seeking the restoration of our Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. About that same time, I heard from Howard Pinkham at U.S. Airways. Howard was so affected by the treatment he received in the security line in Phoenix that he declared himself unfit to fly. He canceled his flight out of, like I said, out of Phoenix on an Airbus full of passengers. And following that, almost around the same time, passenger John Tyner told the goons, "If you touch my junk, I'll have you arrested." About this time, people started printing t-shirts and stickers, writing songs about the TSA. So now the thing was really starting to take on a life of its own. That was in early November. It was really starting to look like a few more uncooperative pilots would shut the entire holiday travel season down altogether. The public resistance was also building with things like National Opt-Out Day and several other similar initiatives. So the TSA and the pilot unions got together for a little conjugal visit to talk about how they could control the damage. They issued a joint press release in which the union bosses fawned all over TSA Administrator John Pistol's latest authoritarian decree, saying that he would no longer subject crew members to the same abuse as everyone else. The message was clear. All right. All right. The message was clear. This issue has been resolved. There's nothing more to see here. Now move along. See, the direct action of a few individuals was well on its way to ending this madness for all of us. But the centralization of power, made possible in this case by the unions, captured our resistance and made it controllable again. At least I'm back to work. I'm keeping the wheels in motion so the feds can go on abusing the rest of you. And that's what's happening. Looks like it's working pretty well. Because people line up and file into the scanners all day long. Or they stand up and assume the position to be frisked, send their kids through. They even tell the goons thank you on the way out. Makes you wonder what's next. Cavity searches? If it keeps us safe, right? Actually, biometrics, as you heard earlier. Because iris scans and facial recognition systems are much more tasteful and effective way to control a population. Yes? Check this out. What if they just decreed that everyone must bow down to the eagle insignia on their way into the airport? I mean, not like fully prostrate on our faces or anything, but just a little bow. Just a little head nod, right? It's ridiculous, right? I mean, that would have nothing to do with security. Besides, it would be an outrage if they were to try to do something like that. Yeah, that's all true, but would you do it? I mean, if that were the only way you could get on an airplane, would you just give the eagle a little nod? Folks, as tyranny marches on, it's probably worth asking, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep your head down, keep working hard so you can avoid the suffering and sacrifice, hardship of having to resist bad people in high places? Are you just going to keep pursuing your comfort at all costs? Are you going to say some words to somebody? Maybe you could write a stern letter to your elected representatives. Will you allow your resistance to be captured in their system? Let me tell you something. Nobody cares what any of us has to say. Where's your city council? Where's this proposed ordinance? All right? They watch what we do, especially what we do with our money. Politicians live in the pocket of big business. The security and surveillance industry is booming big business right now. The airlines are big business too. They don't care what you say either. But if you stop giving them your money, all this will be over tomorrow. And even if not, if we can't change the world, it's still the right thing to do. We've got to protect ourselves and our families from all harm, regardless of the source or the cost that we have to incur. My wife and I teach our children that their bodies belong to them, and not to let anyone touch them or exploit them in an inappropriate way. And that goes for us too. Or is the government entitled to put their hands in our pants? That's right. That's right. Thomas Paine is famously quoted as saying that government is at best a necessary evil, and at worst an intolerable one. I disagree. I don't believe evil is ever necessary. It's not the people of the worst societies, but the best, who won't tolerate the evil designs of the state. When evil becomes necessary in the eyes of good people, who's left to stand for things like truth, justice, love, virtue? Who's guarding the next generation? Yep. Help me out. No worries. Okay? Check, check. All right. Who's guarding the next generation against plunging even further into the chaos? Why is everyone pleading with the state to deliver us from its own evil? Govern yourselves, people. But I get it. I understand. Truth is, I'm not qualified to manage my own life either. But you certainly aren't. All right, we back? I'm not qualified to run my life, but you certainly aren't qualified to manage my life. And isn't it interesting that the people in political power are nearly always drawn from the least qualified among all of us? So you have to judge for yourself. Who is worthy to rule over you? All right, that's it. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you will check out. All right, just a couple more words. I hope you will check out fedupflyers.org, and my contact information is there. Feel free to get in touch with me if you like. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. Say again? It's fedupflyers.org. Fedupflyers. Yep, with an S on the end. 2 flyers. Lots of flyers, actually. All right? Toda. Hitro. Ma'asalama.